Oggi intervistiamo il professore Jan-Werner Muller sul topic del populismo, professore dell'Università di Princeton. Populism. Quoting French academic Philippe Roger, the word is everywhere, its definition is nowhere. What is the definition of the term for you, and where do you see it applied in the current political set?
So what we indeed often hear is that anybody who, as the phrase goes, criticizes elites is automatically a populist. Now, of course, populists, when in opposition, criticize governments, but that's not in and of itself a terribly dangerous thing. In a certain way, it's actually very strange to think that criticizing elites is automatically something politically dangerous or problematic. Civic education, democratic education would tell us that as a citizen, it's good to keep an eye on elites, on the powerful, and so on. So what I think is missing from these contemporary debates is the fact that populists always say that they, and only they, represent the people, or what they very often call the real people, or also the silent majority. So what matters about populism is not anti-elitism. What matters is anti-pluralism. And this comes out in two ways. One is that populists are going to claim that all other contenders for power are essentially illegitimate. This is never just a matter of disagreeing about policy, which is of course completely normal and healthy, I would say, in a democracy. No, populists always immediately make it personal and they make it moral. The other ones are crooked, corrupt, they don't work for the people, they work for the EU, multinational companies, what have you. And secondly, maybe less obviously, populists are also going to say that all those citizens, all those, if you like, among the people themselves, who do not share their ultimately symbolic understanding of who the real people are, and hence logically don't support populists politically, that all those can have their status as properly belonging to the people put into some doubt. So populists always end up excluding on two levels. At the level of party politics, other politicians, elites if you like, but less obviously they also exclude at the level of the people themselves. So some don't really belong at the level of the people.
Okay, thank you. Another question, please. Because Trump appeals to the forgotten men and women and criticizes the rigged system of the media, the election and the establishment, do you think he's entirely a populist, and why so?
I think there's nothing wrong with a politician saying, I think that certain parts of the population have been forgotten, have been excluded, or have gotten a raw deal. That's completely normal in a democracy. Then one has to see whether anybody follows that sort of basically appeal to represent people who currently aren't represented. Completely fine. The problem arises if somebody says, only I represent the people. If you think just back to the inauguration in January, the sentence, today power has been given back to the people, of course translates into saying, if I, Donald Trump, rule, the people rule. That is a very problematic claim, because now anybody who criticizes Trump is criticizing, the people and the supposed people's will. So hence it's not so surprising that the chief strategist of Trump calls critical media an enemy of the people, or that Trump himself, if you recall, criticizes a judiciary that doesn't decide in the way that he wants them to decide as so-called judges. That's problematic. It's not problematic to appeal to the forgotten people. It's problematic to have this anti-pluralist view. And if I may give you one further example of this, it was very little noticed at the time, but in a sense it was deeply revealing. Trump gave a speech, a campaign speech in May last year, where he said, I'm quoting from memory, the most important thing is the unification of the people. All the other people don't mean anything. Now that is typically populist. The populist decides who the people are, he unifies them, and if you as a citizen, even if you happen to have an American passport, even if you happen to legally belong, don't want to be unified on those terms, you're out. You don't matter. You don't mean anything. That's what a quote-unquote normal democratic politician does not say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.